The problem and solution essay is the third type of essay in this course. It's quite different to the essays we've discussed previously. In this case, you're given a problem or an issue. You must think about the causes of that problem and in the main body suggest solutions for overcoming the problem. So you should read the essay question carefully to understand what kind of essay you have to write. Now we're going to look at an easy to follow structure for a problem and solution essay. Let's look at the outline for a problem and solution essay. As you can see, there are 5 paragraphs. Begins with an introduction where you introduce the problem and its causes and consequences. Then there are 3 main body paragraphs where you offer solutions for the causes that we talked about in the introduction. And then you finish with a conclusion where you summarize how important it is to take the measures to solve the problem. Let's look at these examples of problem and solution essay type questions. The inequality between rich and poor countries is now wider than ever before. What do you think are the main causes of this difference, and what do you think can be done to reduce the gap? So from the question we understand that this is a problem and solution essay. The problem is that there's a huge difference in the standard of living in rich and poor countries. So we must think about why this is the case and what can be done to solve the problem or to reduce the gap between rich and poor countries. Look at the second question. Despite advances in medicine and improved access to healthcare, the overall level of health is falling in many countries. Why is this happening, and what can be done to solve the problem? Well, the problem again is obvious. Public health is declining, so we must think about why that's happening and how this problem can be solved. So you see from the questions it's clear that these are problem and solution type essays. So let's look at how to answer this kind of essay. We begin, of course, with an introduction. In the introduction, we introduce the problem and the causes of the problem and even the consequences where possible. So I like to follow this structure here. First of all, we mention the problem. We could begin with something like, the increase of X is an ongoing concern which Y has to deal with. Of course, X is your problem and Y is whoever has to deal with it. So, for example, it could be the increase of crime is an ongoing concern which society has to deal with. Depends. The second way to begin is the problem of something, of X, is one which has been caused by various factors. And another suggestion is, lately, there has been an increase in X, and this has had many negative consequences which must be dealt with as effectively as possible. So choose any of these to introduce the problem. The second sentence, you could copy this. Before suggesting solutions, the underlying reasons for the problem must be examined. In other words, first of all, I'm going to talk about the causes of the problem. And then you introduce the causes. I like to use 3 causes for the problem because in that way I have 3 main body paragraphs which combat those causes. And in that way I write enough words because remember we need to write around 250 words. So following this structure will ensure that you have enough words for your essay. So as I said, 3 causes. You could introduce them like this. One of the main causes is this, another cause is that, and last but not least, this. Okay, so that's your introduction. 3 parts to it. Mention the problem, the second sentence, and the third part where you introduce 3 causes. Then, of course, we come to the main body of the problem and solution essay. As we said, you should aim for 3 paragraphs which offer solutions for each of the causes you mentioned above in the introduction. I like to introduce the main body with this before beginning the main body paragraphs. Measures must be taken to combat this disturbing trend. So this means that, yes, now I'm going to talk about how to solve this problem. And then we have 3 paragraphs which follow the 3-sentence structure we will learn now. First of all, the topic sentence, which offers a solution to the first cause of the problem. For example, one way to deal with this problem is to, or is for, or you could begin for the second paragraph, for example, an alternative way to overcome the problem would be, or you could use a modal passive for one of the paragraphs. Laws should be enforced which would do this. So you can see, try and follow a different structure for each topic sentence for each of the 3 main body paragraphs to show the examiner you have a wide range of grammatical structures at your fingertips. For the second sentence, we explain the topic sentence. You could ask yourself, how is this going to happen? Or what do you mean by this? This will help you to think of what to say for the explanation. Once again, try and make the second sentence a complex sentence using one of these, which, therefore, thus, which you will find in a longer list in the ebook. And then the third sentence should be the result of taking the above measure, and you could begin with any of these. As a result, consequently, by doing this, this would enable, this would lead to, or this means that they would. Or you could use a second conditional sentence. This is also a good idea for giving a solution, and again it shows your advanced level of grammar. The second conditional is, of course, if plus past simple, would plus infinitive. For example, if more people used public transport to travel to work or school, traffic would decrease significantly. Depends what your essay is, of course. In the conclusion, you state how important it is to combat the problem using the measures that you suggested. And there are different ways of doing this. Here are some suggestions. All things considered, there are many solutions to the problem. The sooner the aforementioned suggestions are put into action, the more significant the solution would be. That's one suggestion. Or, in conclusion, X is a concerning issue which requires immediate, global, societal, personal action. It depends who must take the action. And another suggestion, urgent measures must be taken to deal with this disturbing phenomenon. The sooner the aforementioned suggestions are put into action, the more significant the solution would be. So once again, following the structure for the problem and solution essay will give you the tool to answer this type of question confidently and will ensure a higher band score in the IELTS test. Let's look at a model essay together. The topic is human activity is threatening the environment. What can be done to reduce this or to reverse this devastation? From the question, we understand that this is a problem, cause and solution essay. The problem is that the environment is in danger and the cause of the destruction is human beings. So we have to introduce the problem and state what we are doing to damage the environment. As we read this essay, I want you to see how each of these sentences follows the structure that we described above. We begin with the introduction. Environmental destruction is an ongoing concern which the whole planet has to deal with. Remember, the first sentence mentions the problem. And then the second sentence, before suggesting solutions, the underlying reasons for the problem must be examined. So, just to introduce that, now I'm going to talk about the reasons and then the 3 causes of the problem. One of the main causes is the dramatic increase in the number of factories and private vehicles on the road and the resulting toxic emissions. Another cause is the lack of recycling, which leads to the depletion of natural resources. Last but not least, many rare plant and animal species are in danger of extinction because of deforestation. So you can see 3 causes of the problem, and they're all because of human activity. So now we're going to take each of these causes and see how we're going to combat them. We introduce the main body with measures must be taken to combat this disturbing trend. And then we begin with our first topic sentence, which solves the first cause, which was the increase in the number of factories and private vehicles on the road and all these toxic emissions. So here's our topic sentence. One way to deal with the problem is for governments to take measures to limit CO2 gases. So that's our first solution. Then we explain it. Filters should be placed on chimneys and cars should run on lead-free petrol, which does not emit dangerous pollutants. So you can see it explains how the government is going to limit these gases, what it should do, and we've also used a complex sentence using which in the middle. And remember, the third sentence is the result of taking this measure. If this were to happen, the atmosphere would be cleaner and the phenomenon of global warming would be halted. So here we've used a second conditional to give the result. If plus past simple, would plus infinitive. For the second solution, the second main body paragraph, this attacks the second cause, which was the lack of recycling. Another useful suggestion would be for governments to force the public to recycle. Recycling bins should be placed around neighborhoods and household members should learn to sort their waste. This would conserve natural resources such as fuel, wood, and aluminium. So again, topic sentence, explaining the topic sentence and the result of taking that measure. For the third solution, we begin. International laws should also be enforced to ban the illegal clearing away of rainforests. So you see this sentence combats the third cause in the introduction. Countries which disregard these laws should be punished severely in order to deter this destructive action. So it explains the topic sentence and the result. In this way, natural habitats would be preserved and many species would have a safe place to breed. So the 3-sentence structure for all main body paragraphs. And then the conclusion. In conclusion, environmental destruction is a concerning issue which requires immediate global action. The sooner the aforementioned measures are put into action, the more significant the solution would be. So once again, follow the structure. Read this carefully and see how each sentence relates to the structure that we discussed at the beginning. Here's another model essay. This one is about crime. Crime is on the increase. Discuss the causes and give solutions. So read this one carefully and once again note how each sentence follows the structure given above. Now it's your turn. Look at this essay topic. The increasing number of road accidents is a serious issue in major cities around the world. And the question, what can governments and individuals do to reduce the problem? So first of all, you must think, what are the causes of road accidents and what are the consequences? You must decide what essay plan you would use to write this essay. What expressions would you use? And let's read the suggestions below and match them to their expected results. So these are some ideas you could use for your essay. So one of the suggestions is for governments to improve roads. What would be the result of that? Which one would it be? A, B, or C? Well, probably C. Roads would be safer, there would be better driving conditions, which would result in fewer accidents. Look at number 2. Another suggestion is to raise the difficulty of the driving test. What would be the result of that? Well, then only qualified drivers would be given a license. And for the third suggestion, there should be more severe penalties for dangerous driving. And the result of that would be that this would deter drivers from breaking the laws. So, use these ideas, or you feel free to use any other ideas for your problem and solution essay. Follow the structure and you'll see that it's not at all difficult to answer this kind of essay following the structure and the guidelines.